Well, good morning. I want to welcome you to the webinar. Thanks for joining. My name is John Mayfield, and I'm excited to share with you some tips on sales meetings today. And so we're going to get started right now, and I want to respect your time. I also want to kind of just tell you a little bit about a story that happened to me a number of years ago. I was, first of all, I am a real estate broker. I'm in the trenches just like you. And I was having a conversation with one of my agents about goal setting and planning for the upcoming year. And so we're going through her goals and kind of what she wants to accomplish in the upcoming year. And I always love to set some goals and budget and just really set some standards for the agents and what I expect of them and really want to push them to kind of get to the next level. And so as I'm having this conversation with this girl who works for me, her name was Carla, all of a sudden I started noticing a tear streaming down her face. Of course, I was kind of caught off guard and I thought, oh my gosh, what's going on and what happened? And I have to tell you, it was a real wake-up call for me in how important sales meetings are. And as real estate brokers, you get it, and managers, we both go through a lot of stuff with our agents, and sometimes we know things that are going on in their lives that others don't know. And it's interesting to me that a lot of times agents need some help. And it was that moment with Carla that I discovered how important sales meetings are. And really, the fact that agents depend upon us to encourage and motivate. There's so many hats that we wear as brokers and managers. And really, it, our agents are the lifeblood of our organization, and we have to do something in order to achieve success. And so today I want to talk to you a little bit about sales meetings, and I'm not here to sell anything at all, okay? I want you to know that first and foremost. I do have the chat window up, and I hope you will be able to. I think I enabled that. So if you have any questions, you can ask those, and I'll be glad to answer them. And I want you to just take the 35 or 40 minutes. It shouldn't take a long time for this to really just sit down and go over with you my success that I've had with doing weekly meetings with my organization. And I wrote a book. You're probably wondering, well, who's John Mayfield and what are you here for? And as I mentioned, I am not here to sell anything, okay? I wrote a book a number of years ago called 5 Minutes to a Great Real Estate Sales Meeting, and had a lot of people who purchased that book. They said, gosh, we wish you would put those meetings into a subscription format. And so I did that, and I've had a subscription-based service for real estate brokers where I help actually write and prepare sales meetings that they can download and use to help you save time and look professional. And so last year, Teresa Kinney's a good friend of mine. She's actually from Missouri, and we go way back. I got my license in 1978 at the age of 18, and I remember Teresa and I were at a Missouri Real Estate Commission way back in the 1980s before she went to Miami. But I told Teresa about my sales meeting subscription, and I said, I'd really like to take this to an association level because I have a real passion to help brokers and managers. Teresa loved the idea, presented it to the board. And so this is a member benefit for Miami Realtors, and want to just encourage you to be sure and chat. There's no cost, there's no upsell. I know a lot of times I have these member benefits and you only get, they're great member benefits, but you get this little bitty tiny piece. And I'm like, you mean I gotta pay more money to get the whole thing? And it's not that way with my member benefit. This is strictly for brokers, managers, and your agents benefit as well. So this is when you click on the Easy Sales Meetings button, take you over to this spot. Lizette has been doing an amazing job putting these together, and she tells me she likes working on this as well. But you'll see some of the meetings that I've created at that site, and then you can click on a meeting that you're interested in. Each month, I provide a new meeting. This meeting right here, I just did. Called 10X is Easier Than 2X. It's based on the book from Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. I think it's a great meeting, and one to really encourage your agents to think a little bit bigger than normal. But you could see here that if you all of the information is there, you could print out. But if you click on the little box, it's there. It will take you over where you can actually download the handout, the facilitator's guide, and the handout. So I just wanted you to know this is a member benefit. It's free. I have a video with each meeting. So if you don't like to do meetings and you want me to lead the meeting or co-lead it with you, you can press the play button, and then I tell you when to pause and ask some questions. So anyway, just wanted you to know that this is all a member benefit, and I just want to give you some tips on sales meetings today. Let's get started here and kind of go through some of the tips. Now, some of these may seem very basic to you, but they've all been crucial and instrumental for me when delivering sales meetings. And if there's two passions I have today, technology is one. I love technology, but I love sales meetings. I love delivering sales meetings and studying about sales meetings. I love speaking and training, and I love to help brokers with recruiting, and that's kind of one of the other issues that I work on. So the first thing I want to mention to you is to start on time. I think it's so important that we start on time. This may seem like something silly, but one of the things that I learned early on is that those agents who get there on time don't want to be penalized for you waiting to get other agents to show up. Now, I have to be honest with you. I was very guilty. I'd have two or three people sitting in the audience, and I'm like, where's the other 25 or 30 people that are supposed to be here? And I said, let's wait 10 minutes or let's wait 5 minutes. And I found out that I needed to start on time. And I'll tell you what, when I started my meetings on the dot, agents started getting there earlier. In fact, sometimes I had some free giveaways for those who were on time. But over time, by starting on time, that's a lot of times and starting. Over time, you know what I found? My agents just showed up and got there because they didn't want to miss the meetings. And I really believe if you do a great meeting, you provide value to your agents, and you start on time, they will get there on time. So that's my first suggestion I want to give you that was really big for me. Number two, I think you need an agenda. Sometimes I've seen brokers who do meetings and they have really no pre-printed agenda, but I always have an agenda because if you don't have an agenda, you tend to get all over the place. And my agents really appreciated the agenda, and it just helped me stay focused. They knew what we were planning to do. And starting on time, having an agenda, they really elevated my meetings to a whole different level that I never uh, dreamed. Now, my next item that I want to talk to you about is start with a story. It's interesting, and normally on a webinar, sometimes I had intended today to just start with that story about Carla. And I wanted to welcome everybody, and that's okay to do that. But I think right after you do the welcome, you need to start with a story. Going back to my earlier day, a few years, I guess now it would probably be about 8 years ago. I sold my company in 2006, right before the downturn. And went to work for a bank, and I won't bore you with all the stories to say I ended up unemployed with a non-compete clause, and my wife and I had bought a pick your own blueberry blackberry farm, and we lost our crop to a late freeze, spring freeze. And so now I'm unemployed, I'm $1 million in debt, and I can't sell real estate, the only thing I've ever done since I was 18. So as Steve Martin would say, hey kids, we're having fun now. It was a pretty dark time in my life. And so I started speaking and training full time. And I went to an NSA meeting for the National Speakers Association. And we had a speaker there named Kelly Swanson. And Kelly she's a storyteller. And she was telling us you always have to open with a story. And she walked out that morning when she presented to our local chapter telling a story. And we were all so mesmerized and just, really uh, caught up in what she was telling us. And so at break, I went up to her and I said, Kelly, I'm a technology speaker. I can't open with this story. And she said, John, you always have to open with a story. You have to open with a story. You have to close with a story. Come back to that story and close with it. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So I had this huge presentation at the National Realtors in San Diego on technology for brokers. It was broker tech tools to kind of make your office be a little bit more savvy and save time. And so I walk out. They said, here's John Mayfield. And they read my introduction. And I walked out. Normally I would say, hey, thank you so much for letting me be here and, all of that kind of stuff. And I didn't. I walked out there and I said it was April 7th, 2007, when my life was totally turned upside down. And I have to tell you, at that moment, there were 700 brokers in the room. I knew I had them in the palm of my hand. And I proceeded to kind of bring that story a little closer and how I had to use technology to change my whole game plan due to some of the changes in my life. And so I think it's always good for us to open with a story. Sometimes you can do a did you know or a shocking statistic, but there's always some good way to start your meetings. And I always want to encourage my agents to start with a story. The other item I think that is so important is to focus on creating value. Your agents want to have value. Every time I do a sales meeting, there's some type of value that I include with the meeting. And in fact, the meetings that I'm providing you for Miami Realtors have some type of takeaway or value that you can use. Our agents are really struggling, and sometimes they don't let us know what's going on. I was at the Missouri Realtors Winter Business Conference this past week, and one of my students, I run an online real estate school in 10 states now, and one of my students from Missouri who's done really well, his name's Ryan, and I saw his broker, it's a husband-wife team, and I said, how's Ryan doing? And they said, oh, John, he's not doing real well. He's struggling like a lot of agents. And so it's our job, I think, to really look at our meetings as though they're kind of a first aid kit. What can we give them that's something of value that can help them put something in their toolbox to generate leads, to be more encouraged, to be able to make it go a little bit further through their daily lives. So I try to provide some type of, question or accountability or some type of piece that you can use as you through. So make sure that your meetings have some value. I think that's so important. One of the things I will mention to you after I sold my company, and I still to this day hear this from my agents. And by the way, I still run a real estate office today. I run more of a boutique operation with a few agents. But um, when I sold my company, and I had quite a few agents at that time, I remember being at Walmart in the produce section, and I ran into one of my agents, Kathleen, and Kathleen came up to me and she said, John, I miss your meetings so much. You always gave us something to help grow and build our real estate career. So your agents will appreciate that. And I think that's very important. And that kind of leads to the fifth thing that I want to talk about is I think our meetings should be educational. You can provide ups. I'm telling you what, I'm a secondary member of Miami Realtors, and um, I also have access to the St. Louis Realtors because I do some work with them, and I'm have a local board. Nobody, and I work with a lot of associations around the country. Nobody provides the kind of updates and data that your Miami Realtors provide you. And I'm not just saying that, but you have some great statistical data and updated information that you can use with your meetings, and your agents will appreciate. Risk is another big deal. Um, I always tried to provide maybe a little piece from the license law or the rules and regulations from my state so that my agents knew and were briefed on changes in the license law. My school's approved in Florida. There's lots of little nuggets that you can give your agents. And that's why that agenda comes in so handy. You can say, here's our risk update or our law update from Florida real estate rules and regulations. And I always try to include something from the code of ethics so that my agents understood that. So lots of little things to educate your agents, and they appreciate that. And I'm telling you what, I heard that over and over and over again. And I was always hearing my agents being reminded about, hey, this article under the code talks about that and has our right for that. So provide a legal update, some type of educational update that you can do. And the next item that I like for agents to think about, and I may have passed up the slide, is be creative. Okay, that's the takeaway here is be creative. I want to go back one more here. So, well, you're probably thinking purple cow. Some of my best ideas, and I have a slide coming up, is going to Walmart or the grocery store and just walking through the aisles. And sometimes I get some really cool ideas for sales meetings. And I'm always looking for something that I can buy as a handout for my agent. So I'm at Walmart. I'm walking through the kids section, just looking around, and I see this cow, this little stuffed cow. They had a whole bunch of them. And I had just finished reading Seth Godin's book, The Purple Cow. And what was interesting about The Purple Cow, if you've never read that book, it's really good. But Seth talks about they went on a trip to France. They're driving through the beautiful French hills. They see all these black and white cows, and it's so beautiful. And then after a while, Seth said, it just became boring. And so he wrote this book called The Purple Cow. And he's like, you and I, as marketers and as sales professionals, we have to be creative. We have to be different. We can't just be the same old, same old. And I tell my agents when I coach them now who come out of my real estate school, if you want to succeed in real estate, you got to be different. You have to be a purple cow. Well, my agents absolutely loved that that idea. And in fact, they would bring me purple cows in for my birthday and for different other occasions. And I had this bookcase with all these purple cows. But it taught them a valuable lesson through that sales meeting about being different. And really, I bought a whole bunch of those stuffed cows. And my wife and I bought purple spray paint. We painted them all purple. We handed them out at the meeting. But the agents had fun with that sales meeting, and it was memorable. And it taught them to really be different as they went out to market themselves. Another meeting that I did, and this was a great meeting, I think, and I actually did a little promo for you all. If you didn't see that, I'll tell you how to do this. It's a great meeting for you to do. And it was a real wake up call for my agents. So you get a waste paper basket and you give everybody strips of paper, okay? And so the waste paper basket's empty. Everybody has strips of paper. What you do is say, okay, I want you to write down the names of people who you sold a home for, whether it was a listing or they purchased a property that was 6 months or older. I want you to go back 6 months ago. And so in our example, you'd have to say, okay, anybody you sold a home or listed a home and it sold from June of 2024 on back through 23. I would just want you to write down some of the names of those people. And so my agents are like writing down names of all of these people, and I remember Freddie just frantically writing all these different, because she was one of my top agents. And so I gave them a few minutes and they wrote down, and I had some newer agents there. And I said, okay, I want you to think back on a bigger purchase that you purchased somewhere. I want you to write down the names of those individuals or those stores or businesses for bigger purchases, like a car or something larger. And so when everybody gave them a few minutes and when they were done, I walked around the room with that waste paper basket. And I said, okay, if you have not contacted any of those names that you've written down, either through a card or a phone call, you have to put it in the waste paper basket. And I have to tell you what, a lot of my agents, including Freddie picked up, I still remember this. Freddie picked up every one of her slips of paper and put them in the waste paper basket. Now, here was my point to them. If you don't stay in touch with people you've done business with, either through a card or a phone call, you're throwing away good business. Now, how did I get that idea for this meeting? And I shared this with my team. I'm driving down Columbia Avenue in my hometown. Now, Columbia Avenue are these beautiful, big 2-story homes, some 3-story homes built around the turn of the century, huge wraparound porches, massive trees. Like if you get a home on Columbia Street, it sells. People from St. Louis, I'm about an hour away, they want to come down here and buy those homes. They're old St. Joe Minerals Corporation executive officer homes. They're gorgeous. And I've sold many homes on that street. And I'm driving down Columbia Avenue and I'm like reminiscing about all the different homes I've sold. And I see this home that I sold, and there's a Coldwell Banker sign in the front yard. I'm like, what? As I'm driving by, they listed with Coldwell Banker. And then a voice went off in my head. John, when was the last time you got back in touch with those people? Well, that little meeting right there is a short, fun, effective meeting. And my agents still talk about that. And so, be creative, have fun. You can, you know, go to places like the grocery store and you'll just get lots of cool ideas. And so, I keep a little note app on my phone. And when I think of ideas, I write them down. I've got a whole list of things I'm planning to do between now and the end of the year for you all who are subscribing. So be on the lookout for those. And if I read a good book or I have a great, I want to pull the contents of that book and just kind of share it in an overview for you all and for the agents. Creative. Number 7, I think, is very important, and that is we need to allow agents to participate. I think one of the things that I pride myself on is when I teach continuing education, when I teach my CRB, the certified brokerage, real estate brokerage courses. And by the way, I've taught a lot of those in Miami, is that I ask a lot of questions and I want the agents to participate. And, sometimes um, we have to allow people to engage. And it does take some skills to do that. And sometimes, we can be frightened. I used to be when I taught CE classes, like, what if they ask me a question I don't understand? And so, you just ask questions. One of my favorite things to do in a class, and believe it or not, I was teaching a CE class up in Omaha. It was kind of of two classes, and they hired me to come up there and teach a couple of courses for them. And I had an agent ask me a question in the CE class, and I had an answer for it, but then I didn't know, is this really the best answer? And so they throw this question at me. I've got all these people look at me like, what's John going to answer back? And I said, that's a great question. Thank you so much for asking that. And I just looked at the class and I said, class, and I repeated the question to everyone because two things you always want to do when you're leading your group is, first of all, thank them for the question. You never want to say, "Oh, that we don't have to worry about that," or "worry about that," or "That's a bad question." You never want to do that. Whether it's a bad question or not, thank them for it. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you so much. I do that today. I'm still listing and selling real estate, and I'm working with some buyers who are from out of town that are flying in to look at property. And I have to have a buyer's agency agreement signed in advance before I can set up any appointments in the MLS. And they asked me a crazy question, and I said, thank you. So I said, I'm so glad you asked that question. Thank you. And then I proceeded to answer it for them. I got the buyer's agency agreement signed, but I just looked at the group there in Omaha, repeated the question and said, what's your thoughts on this? I had two or three people who had brilliant ideas. And so that person got their question answered. The group didn't have to hear me rattling off stuff, the whole time and using all the time. And people were able to participate. So I think it's always important to allow agents to participate. Use a flip chart. I always love to use a flip chart. I write responses on the flip chart and, just let people participate. I think that's so important. They enjoy that. The other item I think is so important is to listen. When they ask the question, as I mentioned, the first thing I always want to do is I want to thank them, and then I want to repeat the question. So I think that's always important for you to do in that way. And by the way, there's lots of great little ideas. I will want to sprinkle these throughout. This is one of my favorite newsletters I subscribe to. It's all about team building courses. It's well worth subscribing to this. He doesn't try to, sell anything. It's just all about uh, breakout things that you can do. He's got a game that I love to do called the 35 game. And I won't bore you with that, but if you go to his website, you can look it up. But I use the 35 games all the time. I've used it with large numbers of groups and a great session. There's lots of different items here. By the way, I'll make sure that this PowerPoint, the PDF version, is put on the Easy Sales Meeting website. So Lisette can put that up there, and you can have access to any of these. But it's always good, I think, to listen. Number 8, I think that we have to think positive and be positive. Uh, Being positive is so important, and it just creates a synergy, I think. We have to be willing to do that. And so be positive. Number 9 is, have ideas and change. And I think agents want to do something different. I always reminded my agents that if we do the same old thing over and over, but you expect different results for the coming year, it's not going to happen. And so I'm always reminding my agents to, they want that. They don't want to be bored. They want your meetings to be different. And so just change things up, be different. And, sometimes for fun, I would start the meeting and go backwards. We would take the agenda and go back. Sometimes I would do more lecture. Sometimes we would do more group breakout. So I think it's just important to be different and change all the time. As I mentioned earlier, I'm big on flip charts. I think people like that, and it's great. I actually purchased this King flip chart. Tony Robbins and a lot of big speakers use these on stage. I'm going to speak on Friday and doing an instructor workshop for St. Charles Realtors, and I'll have my King flip chart with me. And so I think having a really good flip chart is so important. And then there are some apps if you're doing things, sometimes on Zoom, I'll use what's called Video Pencil. That's kind of neat. So if you're doing some stuff like that, people like visuals, and it's so important for us to use as many visuals as we can, whether it's a flip chart or a board. But I think that's so important for us to do. The other thing is you don't want to be guilty of uh, PowerPoint overload, okay? And so what I mean by that is don't put a bunch of stuff on your PowerPoint slide. I mean, uh, I can talk about a CRM with this slide right here, or I could talk about time management or stress using this slide or email overload. So, you can do some really creative things with just visuals like I've been trying to do here. And the other item I think that's important to do is to videotape your meetings. What I found, and I record all of my meetings when I do those, is that it does provide the ability for your new agents who come in at later intervals to watch those meetings, or people who can't attend. There are some things that I use when I record my meetings through live streaming with YouTube. And this is a great little device here that will follow you around. So if you want to do your meeting, I've been using more of my little Osmo Pocket 3 for actually record almost all my meetings. This little camera is as powerful as a DSLR camera. And a lot of bloggers and content creators I know are actually using this over a $3,500 camera. This was, I think, $500 or $600, but it's a great little camera. You can flip that little screen around and do uh, reels for Instagram. And then the big thing that I think we need to think about, and I'm doing for my real estate school, is I bought a 360 camera. I mean, this is where people are going, and you could record your meeting with this Insta 360. And then if you have younger people who have the Meta Quest, or they're in this whole goggle thing, they can feel like they're sitting right there in the meeting with all the other agents. So really cool things you can do in that respect. I think it's good to have an attendance record. I think we should do that each meeting. Keep a checklist. What did I cover at the meeting? I always wanted to break my meetings up so that I had a good balance. Was I covering risk management, and who was in the meeting? And I have to tell you this as well. By having an attendance record, I had covered an item at one of my meetings. One of my agents had a complaint with the real estate commission. I had recently covered that topic. They were in attendance. I was also brought into that uh, complaint, being the broker, and I had a record, and I keep my agenda and who's there and everything in attendance. I provided that to the real estate commission, and I said, this agent knew that's part of my policy and it's not allowed. And they dropped me from the complaint, and the agent was terminated from my company. But I wasn't involved in that. Now, if I'd not had good records and not a copy of my information, I don't think I would have been released for that. But they're also with the do not call list. If you can prove that you were not I mean, that you had done the training, you will not be held responsible for some of those fines. So allow people to come in as guest speakers from time to time. I think that's always important to do. Uh, think about strategies. Again, that's education. How can I help my agents lead generate? And so those are just good items to keep in mind. And here's the most important reason to do sales meetings is you're the coach and it's halftime and your agents need you to teach, inspire, and motivate. It's funny, I work with so many brokers and talk to them about sales meetings and deliver sales meetings for brokers. And by the way, if you're watching this and you would want me to lead one of the meetings for your office, I'm more than happy to assist. Reach to me and we can try to make that happen for you. But one of the things that I hear from brokers when I talk to them about sales meetings is number one, they say, uh, it's too much time. It takes me too much time to get ready for a meeting. Well, that's where I come in to help you out. Number two, I'll hear brokers say, well, my agents don't want to, we don't do sales meetings anymore. They're too busy. They don't want to come, they don't want to attend. Well, the fact of the matter is they really do want a sales meeting. It's just probably they want something that is worth their while. I was talking to my friend Tim Clark, who's an inspector, and he was telling me that they have these monthly meetings they have to go to, and Tim's like, they've just been so boring, and they're not planned. There's no coordination to them. And we were just talking about my sales meeting product, and he said, I think this is a great idea. And he said, our people won't come to the meetings because they know there's nothing that's going to be of value. The third thing I hear a lot of times is agents just don't know what to come up with. But what I want you to understand is they need inspiration. They need motivation. They need to be encouraged. And I think that's a great way for you and I to do that. And then as we kind of, whoops, I don't know what happened there, but I'll go back over here. Uh, I hit a quick button there, but I think we need to follow up on past ideas. This was huge for me because a lot of times we would write down something on the flip chart that agents would ask me about, and I would say, let me address that. And so I always love to follow up and say, this is what you requested, and we got it done on Monday, or we took care of it on Tuesday, or here's how we handled it. I wanted my agent to know, and to this day know, if they request something, I'm listening, I'm going to take care of it, and I'm going to execute and follow through. It's kind of an accountability piece for me. And the 18, I say, bring it back and tie it up with a bow. And I want you to hang on to that for just a moment, because when I opened with that story, I think we have to come back and we have to bring it all together. And it's kind of like we're putting a ribbon on top of that package. And so close your meetings on time and then debrief. Ask yourself, what could I do differently? I remember the firefighter pilots who came to Missouri Realtors, and they talked about the importance of debriefing. Just whatever you could have done wrong or right, it's always important to debrief and follow up. What could you do a little different? So I have a couple of bonus items I want to tell you here. Okay to do a challenge. I think I've integrated challenges with my meetings so we could kind of keep score and, encourage agents. Sometimes themes for the meetings. And and I also pull the meetings off and make them available on audio. And by the way, I do that with these sales meetings. So if you want to send the link to your agents where they can listen to the meeting, or if you want to listen to it in advance, you can do that. But just understand practice makes perfect, and don't give up or get discouraged. So I want to go back to this story I told you about and kind of put a ribbon on the gift, because this has hopefully been a gift for you today, some of the ideas. So there's Carla with this tear coming down her face. And I told you it was a real wake-up call for me. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, have I done something wrong? Is she getting ready to quit? What's happening? And so Carla said, you remember that sales meeting you did last year? And she gets in her purse and she pulls out this little wrinkled check. And it was a sales meeting where I had had some fake checks made up. And I had everybody write out an amount that they wanted to be able to cash next year without, after they paid all their bills and taxes and everything. And I told him, carry it with them and look at it. And it was really from a story I'd heard about Jim Carrey, who wrote a check out for $1 million or a couple $1 million. And Jim's carried that in his wallet and he looked at it and he said, one day I'm going to be able to cash this check. And Carla said, you had us write that down. And she said, here's the amount I wrote down. And she's crying and she said, I'm able to cash that check today. And I just want to say thank you because I would have never been able to do that had you not challenged us with that meeting. So it's a real wake up call for me to know that, you know what, that your agents want good meetings. That's the key to their success. We can help them grow, we can help them do good, and it's all about scoring and winning the touchdown. I want my new real estate students who graduate to be successful, to score a winning touchdown. And we can do that. And you can do that through easy sales meetings with Miami Realtors. Again, it's included with your membership. I hope you like them. Um, I'm always telling the group, be sure and or on my videos, if you have an idea or a need for a meeting or a topic that you wish I would cover, let me know. My email, I thought my email address was there, but you can reach me at through the association. I think it's there as well. But it's John globalrealestateschool.com is probably the best email to send to me, John at globalrealestateschool.com. But I hope this was helpful for you. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. I love sales meetings. I think it's a great time for us to really set ourselves apart with the agents. And by the way Easy Sales Meetings works, you get the facilitator's guide, and a lot of times I do a PowerPoint. You don't have to tell your agents that I wrote the meeting. You just present it and let them think that, wow, you put a lot of work into that. And so when I started doing that, that's what really gave me the idea for the book. I remember some of my meeting. I had a meeting on some apples, that another idea I got from a grocery store. And I remember so many of my agents coming up and saying, that was a great sales meeting. Thank you so much. And then that kind of gave me the encouragement to keep going and doing more meetings like that. So I'm here to help you out. I appreciate Miami Realtors and the support they've given Easy Sales Meetings. Let them know you like it if you do, hopefully. And if there's any ideas for meetings, let me know. I'd be glad to help you. And I don't know if the webinar chat is on or not, but reach out to me if you have any questions. Thanks again. Have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Oh, I do see a question that came through in the Q&A. So I don't know if that person is on. Oh, somebody wanted to know about the recording, and I think I'll give that to the association. Yes, we'll make that available. So thank you so much.